Is the screen visible? Can anyone confirm that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon to all, and as the other has stated, that this is the last session in this 14-day national workshop. So we will be actually continuing with our presentation that we had on 14th. That is a part of the factor analysis that we have studied, the exploratory part, and we would like to validate whatever our findings was in the exploration, and we would like to take up the confirmatory factor analysis, which establishes the model on validation ground. So we would like to understand the fundamental difference between the CFA and the EFA. And the EFA, we have already understood that it is not only a process with the help of which we can reduce the variables, but we can also identify the underlying factor structure. And confirmatory factor analysis, it helps us in establishing the validations for the measurement model. And if we take it one step further, we can also check on the structural models also. So all the path analysis and the structural equation modeling part, that can also be taken up by the confirmatory factor analysis. So we actually started with an interdependence technique in exploratory factor analysis, whereby we have agreed that when we are actually putting the variables or the list of observed variables for identifying the underlying factor structure, there is no preconceived idea of dependent or independent set of variables. So all the variables are taken up together for the analysis. But in the confirmatory factor analysis, as you proceed through, and if you have identified the factor structure, now a researcher can actually identify the potent relationship between the factors extracted. And a researcher may identify certain factors as independent factors and certain factors as dependent factors, and then he or she can establish a structure, propose a structural model, and went on to validate that particular measure the structural model, and went on to validate that. There can be a number of different kinds of relationships in structural equation modeling or path analysis that we have seen. We have seen the intervening variables or the moderating or the mediating variables. So we can check on the moderation part. We can check on the mediations too. We can check on the moderated mediation or the mediated moderation. So it depends on what kind of a complex or a simple structure that you are coming up with. So let us have a very quick look on to the differences between the EFA and the CFA. This is a very prima facie kind of a difference. So EFA, as we have already seen, that it determines the factor structure, the underlying factor structure, which is not very evident from the observed list of variables. And CFA actually takes up or works on the basis of certain a priori models. So CFA, when we are actually applying CFA, we are having a priori theoretical framework or a theory from which a model can be derived. And then we can proceed with the help of data centered around that particular model to structure a particular framework and then validate that particular framework. In EFA, it explains maximum amount of variance, and in CFA, number of factors and measured variables. And in CFA also is characterized by the model supported by theory or previous research. So CFA is grounded, very solidly grounded on certain beforehand theory or a priori theory or an a priori framework. So what are the steps in confirmatory factor analysis? We need to define the individual construct of the measurement model. The second step is specifying the overall model to be tested. The third one is estimation of the empirical results of the measurement model. The fourth one is assessing the validity of the measurement model. So we start with defining the individual construct of the measurement model. The individual construct of the measurement model in most of the cases comes from the literature review and your own thought process or your own inputs as a researcher. If you want to contextualize the existing theoretical framework or existing construct into certain issues or with the research problem that you have in mind. Specifying the overall model to be tested. So to start with, you can identify the measurement model which you can test out with. Estimate the empirical results of the measurement model. So we will be using a specific application tool which is known as Amos. Some other researchers may also use the PLS to assess a structural model or a measurement model. And there are other application tools like Jamovi, we can have Adanko. So we have a number of tools with the help of which we have a Lizrel tool also, with the help of which these analysis can be taken up. And then most importantly, we must assess the validity and the reliability of the measurement model. And we can, as we have said, that we can take one step ahead this particular measurement model, because we can transfer ourselves from a researcher who is primarily focusing on interdependence technique to a researcher who can now check on a more conventional and traditional format of interrelationship between the variables. So from the measurement model or from the validated factor structure, we can construct a structural model also, which we can test out with the data set. So two things are very important as far as the concepts are concerned. One is called a congeneric model and a non-congeneric model, or sometimes which is known as congeneric and non-congeneric measurement. Now, if you see both of these models, we have a construct on the left-hand side. A construct is basically the latent factor or the latent component that is to be extracted through the factor analysis process. So on the left-hand side of our screen, we are seeing a construct which is having 3 observed variables significantly loaded in it. And on the right-hand side, we are seeing a construct whereby we are seeing 4 observed variables significantly loaded. So all these lambda 1, lambda 2, lambda 3 are basically the factor loadings. And you will find the error variances are also attached to the observed variables. Now, interestingly, over here, you will find that there is no cross-loading. That means, none of the constructs are having any cross-loading of observed variables. So x3 is not loaded onto construct 2. Or say, as a matter of fact, x4 or x5, x6, x7, none of them are loaded in construct 1. Similarly, in case of the error variances are restricted to the individual constructs only. So in a congeneric measurement, what we are supposed to get, what we are expected to get, is the observed variables are categorically loaded into a single construct. So there is no question of cross-loading. Whereas in a non-congeneric measurement, what we see, what we will now observe is the cross-loading. So we will have, the first construct may have a observed variable loaded from the second which is supposed to be loaded from the second construct, and it is also significant for the second construct also. Say, for example, in this case, x4 can be both attributed to construct 1 and construct 2, assigned to construct 1 and construct 2. Similarly, x2 in this case can be both assigned to construct 1 and construct 2. If there is a this congenericity is taken care of by the rotation that we have discussed in the last class. So orthogonal or oblique rotation will take care of the orthogonal rotation probably will take care of this. So these are the concept of congeneric and non-congeneric measurement. Then we, for a very brief period of time, we discussed in the last class about one thing, that most of the scholars or most of the researchers or students, they come up with the question that how many observed variables should define a construct, or if we want to accept a latent construct as a valid construct or as a robust construct, how many observed variables or how many factors, how many factor loadings are to be associated or assigned for a particular latent construct. So is there any rule of thumb, or is there any underlying principle? So we identified 3 specific kinds of model. The first one is known as an underidentified model. The second one is a just identified model, and the third one is an overidentified model. So According to the items or the variables which actually define a construct, we can identify these three sets of models. So what is an under-identified model? In case of an under-identified model, you see, on the left-hand side, you have a construct. You have only two observed variables, A1 and A2, being loaded in this particular construct, or this particular construct has been defined by only two observed variables, A1 and A2. A1 and A2 are having their error variance attached to it, E1 and E2, and there are two factor loadings correspondent with the two observed variables, that is lambda 1 and lambda 2. So observing this particular construct, the number of parameters that are to be estimated over here are 4, lambda 1, lambda 2, E1 and E2. So we need to estimate 4 parameters. On the right-hand side, you see the symmetric covariance matrix, which is a interaction between the observed variables. You see the number of covariance matrix to be estimated in this for this particular construct, for this particular construct and observed variable relationship is 3. So A1 with A1, A2 with A1, and A2 with A2. So the rule is, if the number of parameters to be estimated is greater than the number of symmetric covariance matrix, then the model is said to be an under-identified model, and it is not a very stable model. Okay, we do not recommend such kind of a model which is having only two observed variables being loaded for a single construct. So the number of parameters estimated, if it is greater, in this case, you see the number of parameters to be estimated are 4, 2 factor loadings and 2 error variances. And vis-a-vis the symmetric covariance matrix 3, so 4 greater than 3. This is not a very good model to be retained, or this is not a very good model to be recommended. So what about the just identified model? You see, in case of a just identified model, here, we are seeing the number of observed variables for a particular construct is 3. So how many parameters are to be estimated here? Lambda 1, lambda 2, and lambda 3. These are the 3 factor loadings. And E1, E2, E3, these are the 3 error variances. We are getting number of parameters to be estimated as 6. So let us check on the covariance matrix also. See the number of covariance, since we are having 3 observed variables, the symmetric covariance matrix, the number of symmetric covariance matrix to be estimated are also 6. So in such cases where the number of parameters to be estimated is equal to the symmetric covariance matrix, we refer to it as a just identified model. And we can actually accept this particular model. So this is the bare minimum requirement to accept a construct or to accept a model. So for each construct, if the number of observed variables is 3, it provides us with the bare minimum requirement to accept that model on a sound ground. So in this particular case, we can identify it as a just identified model. So what is an over-identified model? Obviously, there will be number of observed variables greater than 3. So in this case, you see the number of observed variables is 4. It can be 5 also. It can be 6. Anything greater than 3. So we have number of parameters that are to be estimated for this particular model is 8. Now 4 factor loadings and 4 error variances. And you see the symmetric covariance matrix. The number of symmetric covariance matrix are to be estimated for this particular model is 10. 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 is 10. So in this case, you see the number of parameters to be estimated are less than the symmetric covariance matrix. This is an over-identified model. So the over-identified model is a kind of a very robust model, or a kind of a very sound model, and that the researcher should accept, and as a teacher we are recommending. So number of construct, if this is a question being thrown by a student or a scholar, that how many observed variables per construct is acceptable to reckon it as a good model or to reckon it as a sound model. The minimum number of observed variable per construct should be 3. That will identify it as a just identified model. And if it is more than 3, it is an over-identified model. Okay, so this is one of the areas where a lot of questions are taken up. The next issue is the concept of the reflective and the formative model. So we come across two different kinds of model. One is called the reflective model and one is the formative model. So when a particular researcher is interested to go for a structural equation modeling or to check the path analysis, the researcher may frame a reflective or a formative kind of a model. So what exactly is a reflective model? Say we have taken an example over here. You see the viral attack over here in this particular example is the latent variable. And we have a number of observed variables linked to this viral attack. Say, for example, fever and chill and headache and cough and tiring. So you see, in case of a reflective model, the observed variables exhibit a degree of intercorrelationship between each other. So fever and a chill having an intercorrelationship with the headache, often we find these two symptoms taking place together, along with cough and fatiguing or tiring. There can be other set of observed variables also, like dry mouth or numbness at the tip of your fingers, etc. There can be other observed set of variables, but interestingly, in a reflective model, the observed variables are showing a degree of correlationship between each other. In case of a formative model, however, the indicators do not necessarily share the same theme, and hence have no preconceived pattern of intercorrelationship. Over here, you see, we are actually conceiving heart attack as a latent construct, and we are seeing a number of observed variables like alcoholism, emotional stress, a diabetic disorder, or a smoking habit. Now, it is not necessarily a fact that alcohol and smoking will be intercorrelated with each other, or smoking or a diabetes is intercorrelated with each other, something like that. So in a formative model, the indicators, they do not necessarily share the same theme, and hence have no preconceived pattern of intercorrelationship with each other. So these are the two models. So it basically depends on the researcher how he or she is conceiving a model, whether he or she is conceiving a reflective model or a formative model. You see, the application platform that we will be using to conduct a CFA is not the SPSS. Actually, it is a plugin for SPSS, which is known as Amos. The full form of Amos is Analysis of Movement of Structure. For a prolonged period of time, I should say that Amos couldn't deal with the formative model, so it could only deal with the reflective model. But the other softwares like the PLS or the Adanco, they can deal with both the formative as well as the reflective model. So the estimations of the empirical results of the measurement models, we follow a number of checks, validity checks and reliability checks for estimating the empirical results of the measurement models. One of them is the order condition. The order condition actually states the unique variance and covariance. That unique variance and covariance should be greater than the number of parameters to be estimated. So that gives you whether a particular model is under-identified or just identified or over-identified. And the rank condition, it should be minimum 4 items per construct. That's for a very good model. For a just acceptable model, we can go for 3 items per construct also. So assessing the validity of the measurement model, we have a number of fit indices, which we normally state as the goodness of fit, and we have badness of fit indices also conversely. We have the incremental fit measures, which identify whether a model is robust or not. We have parsimonious fit measures also that identify whether a model is sound or not. So these we will be taking up once we take up an example and perform a CFA. So there are certain technical measurement or estimation of the empirical results on the basis of certain constructs, on the basis of certain indices. Like we have the construct validity. These will be explained when we will take up this hands-on exercise. Construct validity can be of three types. One is the convergent validity, the second one is the discriminant validity, and the third one is the nomological and the face validity. We will discuss this once the results come out of our analysis. So convergent validity, again, it takes into consideration three issues. One is the factor loading. The rule of thumb or the standard benchmark reference value is the factor loading should be greater than 0.7. AVE, or the average variance extracted, it should have a value of greater than 0.5. And the construct reliability should have a value of greater than 0.7. So you can find a number of references. We normally use the reference of Hare et al. The other two authors along with Hare is Tatham and Black in 2010. So all the validity scores and the reference scores can be cited from their work. Similarly, in case of discriminant validity, the calculation is the average variance extracted between any two constructs should be greater than the sum of the squared correlation between the two constructs. That's normally is the measure for discriminant validity. And we have the nomological or the face validity also, that speaks about the validation is the extent to which a test is, subjectively viewed as covering the concept it purports to the measure. So in case of a nomological or face validity, it refers to the transparency or the relevance of a test as it appears to the research participants or the test parts. So in other words, a test can be said to have, face validity if it looks like it is going to measure what it is supposed to measure. So face validity, we normally use this particular term that we take certain things on face value. So if we put it very simply, the nomological or the face validity is a test that can be said to have a face validity. Test can be said to have a face validity if it looks like it is going to measure what it is supposed to measure. So that's in the simplest way if we want to put what face validity is all about. So this is the calculation for the average variance extracted and the construct reliability on the bottom right corner. And these two, calculations are required. But anyway, when we are using SPSS or Amos, these two, calculations are taken up by the algorithms which run the software itself. But these are the, equational expression for AVE and CR. Now, let us take an example and let us go hands-on, because we will be dealing with two things. One is we will be dealing with one measurement model on the basis of certain a priori theory, because we have already said that in case of a CFA, we normally deal with something which is called a theory which we are having beforehand. So we will deal with a priori model, or we will deal with an a priori theory. Okay, so let us go to that small example that we will be having. So this is a theory which has been developed by two people. One is Fishbane and the second one is Azen. This was originally developed in the year 1980 and subsequently revised in 1985. It was further revised in 1992. Again, it got revised in 2004. It got modified slightly for additional variables in 2011. Until now, we are using it as one of the most robust theories for consumer behavior to analyze the consumer purchase behavior, purchase intentions, in whichever platform you like, whether it is on the physical platform or on the e-commerce platform or the virtual platform. This particular theory of planned behavior has been used. So this is a time-tested theory and a time-tested model. So that's why we have taken it. We will use a small, data of 300 participants, and these are some of the latent constructs: the attitude, the subjective norms, the perceived behavioral control, the purchase intention, and purchase behavior. It's not possible to have a direct measure of these constructs. Okay, it's very difficult to measure attitude directly. It's very difficult to have a measure of subjective norms, which actually influences the purchase intention and purchase behavior directly. The perceived behavioral control is a later inclusion in this particular model in 1992. Prior to that, in 1980 and 1985 version of this theory, it did not have PBC as a construct or as a dimension or as a factor. So it's very difficult to assess perceived behavioral control also directly. Similarly, purchase intention and purchase behavior. So we must measure these things with the help of certain surrogated items, which we call the scale items. So let us see how many items or how many statements, how many scale items have been generated to have a measure of each and every of these latent constructs. So these are the latent constructs. We, as a researcher, we believe that these are the factors which make up the underlying factor structure of our measurement model. And if possible, we will take this measurement model one step further to establish some kind of a structural model, convert the interdependence model into a normal form of interdependence and independent variable and a relationship between them. So this attitude, this particular study is having focus on the green purchase behavior or green product endorsement by the customers. So the first one is the attitude towards purchasing green products. So this attitude has been measured with the help of 4 scale items. You see, these are the 4 statements. The first statement, I think that purchasing green product is favorable. I think that purchasing green product is a good idea. I think that purchasing green product is safe and I am willing to spend a little more money to buy green products. So all these 4 observed variables are a part of a structured questionnaire or a structured survey instrument, which is fitted with a 5-point interval scale. We have used a Likert scale, and then we have, proceeded for the survey, and we have obtained data from 300 respondents. So the next one is the subjective norms. Subjective norms, to start with, we had 3 scale items. The first one is my family think that I should purchase green products rather than normal products. My close friends think that I should purchase green products rather than normal products. And most people who are important to me think I should purchase green products rather than normal products. So these are the 3 subjective norm statements which are actually can identify, a subjective norm as a latent construct. Then we have perceived behavioral control. To have a measure of perceived behavioral control, we have 4 constructs. Number 1, I am confident that I can purchase green products rather than normal products when I want. I see myself as capable of purchasing green products in future. That means it, refers to the decision-making process. Number 3, I have resources, time, and willingness to purchase green products, capability to purchase. There are likely to be plenty of opportunities for me to purchase green products. So the opportunities. So decision-making, capabilities, confidence, opportunities. So these are the fundamental issues which can have a measure, which can give us a measure of perceived behavioral control. Then the purchase intention. It is supposed to be measured with 3 observed variables. I intend to purchase green products next time because of its positive environmental contribution. This is scale item number 1. I plan to purchase more green products rather than normal products. This is number 2. And I will consider switching to eco-friendly brands for ecological reasons. So these are the 3, you can say observed variables with the help of which we can actually have certain measurement, an idea about the purchase intention. The last one is purchase behavior. It is also measured with the help of 3 observed variables. I deliberately purchase green products. I always purchase green products when I have an option, and choosing green products is something I have done automatically. So that reflects the purchase behavior. And these 3 scale items are supposed to measure the purchase behavior. Okay. So this is the measurement model that we are talking about. So if you see the measurement model, you see this 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These are the 5 latent constructs that we have spoken about. The first latent construct is attitude. The second one is the subjective norm. The third one is the perceived behavioral control. The fourth one is the purchase intention, and the fifth one is the purchase behavior. And we have just seen that attitude can be measured with the help of four scale items. So we have put a small code for that. Since it is attitude, we have represented it with 81, 82, 83, 84. So what exactly is 81, 82, 83, 84? So the first statement is 81. The second one is 82. This is 83 and 84. Similarly, in case of subjective norms, this is SN1, this is SN2, this is SN3, PBC1, PBC2, PBC3, PBC4, PI1, PI2, PI3, and to complete with PB1, PB2, and PB3. So you will find all these distributions over here. And all the observed variables are linked up with the error variances, E1 up from E1 up to E17, since there are 17 observed variables in this particular measurement model. And we have also linked up the factor, the latent factors with the covariance estimation. So this is the measurement model that we will be estimating at the very beginning of our CFA. And if possible, if a researcher believes that after validating and finding out the reliability of this measurement model, if it is possible for the researcher to take it one step further and can convert this interdependence model into kind of a more conventional relationship between a dependent and independent variable. So if a researcher can identify from this measurement model a set of independent variables and a set of dependent variable, and can create a structural model, and then can go ahead and test it. Okay, so let us just take up the hands-on exercise. As I have told you that we will be using something which is called Amos. So Amos comes as a plugin to the IBM SPSS software. So if I click Amos, you will find this is the Amos interface that you can see. It has a couple of navigational panes. It has a horizontal navigation bar where you can actually import the file or import data. You can change the visuals. You can import the plugins over here. You can conduct the analysis. Okay, you can edit certain things, but most importantly, the vertical pane, the left-hand side vertical pane over here, you will find a number of tabs. So some tabs are the visual tabs, and it has their own meanings. Okay, so as we proceed with our analysis, or as we proceed with our analytical process, we will understand which tab is used for what purpose. Okay, so we will keep in mind this particular model. So we need to draw this particular model out. Then we will import the data. And once the data is imported, we will fix up all the measurement criteria. And then we will run the test. Once we run the test, it will come out with certain results. We need to interpret those results. So to start with, we are going to bring in certain data. As I have told you that this particular study is a study using a very well-tested and well-established model, which is called the theory of planned behavior. So we are clicking this. Before bringing the data, let me just draw this raw figure first. Okay, fill up all the templates. That means we fill up all the terminologies that are required, and then we will import the data. Okay, so how to draw this particular figure? So just watch my cursor. You can actually do two things. You can directly click on to this particular icon. Okay, just click it and click it once here. Okay, so this particular elliptical shape will be used basically for depicting your variable, this one. Okay, the latent construct. Okay, and you can actually click on to this the required number of times depending on how many observed variables are attached to this particular construct. So this represents the latent construct. And in case of attitude, we have seen that there are 4 observed variables from 81 to 82, 83, and 84. So you need to click it 4 times, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if for better visibility, you see, if I want to see this particular thing, let me just undo this entire thing so that it gives you a better view. Okay, now if I click here 4 times, you see this particular model, the preliminary model for the first construct has already been done. Okay, so we have this elliptical shape. This elliptical shape represents the latent construct or the hidden construct or the factor that is to be extracted. Okay, these square boxes are basically the observed variables. These small round shapes are basically the error variances. Now, you see, this Amos, this particular space, has given you a lot of liberty to organize your figures and diagrams, etc., so that you can make optimal use of the space available. So if I want to change the orientation of this particular figure so that we can use the space properly and we can draw the figure properly, what we can do is we can select, come to the left-hand side pane once more. You will find this particular symbol, which looks like a bouquet of flowers. You just click it. If you click it, what is the function of this particular flower bouquet? It helps you to keep selected this entire thing. Okay, so since I have clicked this, the entire figure that we have drawn so far will remain selected. Okay, now we can actually shift this, we can actually format this with the help of any designated formatting icon. So let us rotate this for better space utilization. You come over here again to this navigational panel. You see there is almost a roundish arrow like here. So if you click this and if you bring here, see, if you just click it, it will rotate it. It will rotate it, clockwise. So let me keep it in this way. You deselect this every time you need to perform one particular task, and it is once you select a particular icon, once you select a particular task, and once the task is accomplished, you need to deselect it. Otherwise, you cannot move on to the next selection. So this has been done. The orientation or the rotation has been done on the basis of the reorientation required to use the space in a proper way. Now I want to move it. Okay, so there is a icon over here. You can see it's almost look like a carrier. It looks like almost a truck. So it's red in color. So if you click this is the vehicle that will help you, to move your shape. So it will move your shape from here to here. Okay, so you can place it like this. Okay, and since you have selected the flower bouquet, then the entire figure is selected. So whatever movement will be done, it will take up all the other features. So if I want to reshape this particular arrow, it is too lengthy, I feel. So if I want to reshape this arrow, I will just drag it so that it can reshape it, and I can place it right over here. So this is the first construct that we have drawn. Attitude, we will name it a little later. So this is attitude with 4 observed variables and 4 error variances. So let us take up the next one, which is the subjective norm. Subjective norm has 3 observed variables and 3 error variances. So let us just rotate it first. Then let us take the help of this carrier so that we can move it over here. Okay, and we can move these error variances. Fine. So this is our second construct. Let's go to the third construct, which is perceived behavioral control. It has 4 observed variables. Again, let us rotate it. So once rotated, we are going to use the track to bring it over here and just align all the error variances so that it looks nice. Fine. This is the third construct that we have drawn in our measurement, model. Then the fourth one is purchase intention. It has 3 observed variables. It, selecting the track and bringing it over here, aligning the error variables. And then we are going for the last one, which is the purchase behavior. It has 3 observed variables. Again, we are rotating it, selecting the track, and we are aligning the error variances. Okay. Now we need to actually connect all these latent construct with the covariant structure. So we are using this double-headed arrow. So we are selecting it, and we are going to connect all the latent factor structures. So there will be, in total, 10 estimations to be made over here. If you calculate it properly, you'll find that there are 10. Okay, so we have drawn the raw figure without the nomenclatures or without the labels. Now we need to label it out. Now, if I want to label it out, let us deselect this thing. We can do 2 things. One is we can simply double click on these, boxes or on these ellipses or on these round shapes and type out whatever we need to type out as a label or as a marker. Okay, so if I click onto this box 2 times, it will open up this object properties. You see a small window is open. I'm just closing it. If I click 2 times on this particular box, which is denoting an observed variable, just 2 times, it will open up these object properties. And in this particular space where it is written variable name, you type out the variable. So as I have told you, that these 5 latent constructs, one is attitude, subjective norm, perceived behavioral control, purchase intention, and purchase behavior. They are denoted. We have seen the scale items. There are 4 scale items for attitude, 3 for subjective norms, 4 for perceived behavioral control, 3 for intention, purchase intention, and 3 for purchase behavior. And we have used certain abbreviations, isn't it? You can easily go back and check over here. We have used certain abbreviations for attitude, for the other constructs as well. So what we can do over here is we can simply type out here in the variable name area. So the first one is 81. You just keep an eye on this particular boxes. See, the moment I type it over here, it reflects here. So if I want to go to this particular box, you just click onto this particular box and type 82. It will come over here. Then this box, 83. And this one, 84. So it completes the attitude part. So all the observed variables that actually measure the attitude part, this has been drawn. And then the subjective norms, SN1. Then we have SN2. We have SN3. Then the perceived behavioral control, PBC1, PBC2, PBC3, PBC4. Then we have the purchase intention, PI1, PI2, PI3. And the last one, purchase behavior, PB1, PB2, and PB3. So all the observed variables have been represented with their markers, with their labels in a very abbreviated form of the observed variables. Now we need to label our latent constructs. So the first one is attitude. You can write in full. The second one is subjective norm. subjective norms. The third one is perceived behavioral control. The fourth one is purchase intention. And the last one is behavior. Okay, so that completes labeling of the latent construct. Now we need to label the error variances. So that is E1, E2, E3, E4, E5, E6, E7, E8, E9, E10, E11, E12. There will be 17 in total, E13, E14, E15, 16, and 17. So that completes our labeling part. So what we have done so far, we have drawn this particular measurement model based on our theory. Okay, so the researcher wants to test the measurement model first. So the model is drawn with all the latent constructs and the observed construct with their observed variables with their error variances, and the labeling is complete. Now it is up to the scholar to bring in or to import the data based on which the analysis will take place. So to bring in the data, what we have to do, again, we have to go to this particular navigational pane. And you see in the first column over here, there is almost, it looks like almost a data table. The icon looks like a data table. So you click it. So it opens up a window. It asks you to browse out the file that you want to import. So you click this file name, and you can find out where your file is. So let me have a look. This is my file, TPP, Theory of Planned Behavior. So I'm just clicking it open, and you just click it. Okay. Okay. Now, if I want to see whether that particular file has been imported properly or not, how do I check whether everything has been imported? You just look at this in this navigational column, the third column, basically, third column, third row. Okay, so if I click this, you see everything has been imported. So 81, 82, these are all the variables, observed variable list, 81, 82, 83, 84. And these are all the statements, isn't it, that we have already seen. So 81, 82, 83, and all those things have been imported. Okay. So we have two things in place. We have constructed the model with adequate labeling, and we have imported the data. Now let us go for fixing up the parameters which are to be estimated. That means we need to run the test now to check this particular measurement model. So again, you come down to the left-hand side navigational bar, and you come to, column number 2, just beside the data table. You will find, if we bring the cursor over here, you will find that this particular icon is all about the analysis properties. That means how you will be setting up the parameters to be estimated. So we are just clicking on this. We are using the maximum likelihood model. So let us go for the output, fix up the output. What are the parameters that you want to check? We are interested about the standardized estimates. We are interested about the factor score weights, the covariance of the estimates. We are interested about the correlations of the estimates. Okay, so these are certain things that we are interested about to check the measurement model. So we are closing it. And once the parameters are fixed, that means the parameters that are required to estimate this measurement model, we need to run the model. So again, come over here this column number 3, just beside this analysis property box, you will, if you take this particular cursor, it says calculate the estimates. Now, one important thing over here is, as soon as you will be clicking this calculation of the estimates, you will be prompted to save the data. Because until and unless you are saving this data, this calculation or this computation will not take place. So you will find this, say, the moment I am clicking this, so the moment I am clicking this, this is prompting me to save the data. So let me just save this data as CFA1. So you need to save the data before, okay, it is to be saved with a different name. So I'm just using a different name for this, CFA3. I'm saving this. Okay. So you see, the moment you saved the data, the analysis has taken place. The analysis has already been done. Now, how you will be sure that the analysis has taken place properly, or the model has a proper run, or the things that you have designed have a proper run? You will find over here that there is a button. If you can see from here, I'm just let me just zoom in a little bit so that you can have a good look into it. See, over here, there is a particular button, which is the arrow has become red in color. Now, the red color symbolizes or represents that the particular process that you intended to run has run properly. Okay, in many cases, you will find that the students, the scholars are coming out with a grievance or a complaint or a dissatisfaction that this particular arrow has not turned into red. That means it is an indication. If the arrow is turned into a red, means it has been activated, and now you can pull out all the results. Okay, if it is not turned into a red color, that means the computation or the calculation or the estimation that you wanted to run did not run in the first place. It may be a case that your model built up is wrong, or it may be a case the syntax is wrong. It may be a case that font size are wrong. One important thing that I need to say over here, that when you will be writing this name of the construct, and if it is a double word construct, like in this case, you see subjective norms or perceived behavioral control, if it is more than one word, if you're using for the latent construct, don't leave any gap between the two words. Okay, if you are leaving a gap between the two words, the Amos program will not run. Now, over here, what I have done, when I have typed it out, I have written the first word, and without pressing the space bar, I have just pressed enter, so that it came to the second line, and I have written the second word in the second line. So basically, there is no space between these two words. Similarly, in this case of perceived behavioral control, I wrote perceived in the first line, and then I pressed enter, came to the second line, behavioral, pressed enter, come to the third line, control. So just be very careful about this particular thing. But anyway, in this particular case, since we are seeing that this particular arrow has turned into red, that means our estimation or our model has a successful run. Now, we have two things. One is called the unstandardized estimates and the standardized estimates. See here, if you come down a little below, you will find this chi-square value also has been estimated for the model. Okay, so number of iterations that has taken place is 15, and you will find this chi-square value of 2,849.9 with the degrees of freedom of 111. So these are some preliminary information or results that you can get. So all the 300 cases were taken up. And one more thing, you see, if there is a missing data in these 300 cases, as I've told you, that we have used 300 research participant for this small survey, and had there been any missing data, this particular computation or this particular model built up would not have run. If there are missing data, but you have the provision for missing data imputation in Amos. So if you have these cases, sometimes if you are dealing with very large data sets, it is quite possible. Suppose there are 500, 1,000 respondent and a huge number of observed variables, and if you are taking the statements, if you are taking the statement values with the help of an interval scale, it is more likely that you will end up with some missing values. Don't worry about that, because Amos is providing you with an option to impute the missing value. So the machine will compute the missing value for you. So once the missing values are imputed, you can run this particular thing. Okay. So let us now check. We can access two different sets of result over here. One is the unstandardized estimates and one is the standardized estimates. So let us have a look into the unstandardized estimates first. Once you select this and you click this red arrow, and you will find all the values. So again, let me just zoom in a little bit so that it is visible. So these are all unstandardized estimates. So let us go for the standardized estimates, which is more important. If you see the regression weights over here, it's quite significant: 0.93, 0.91, 0.86, 0.82. These are all the relational measures between the factor structure and the observed variables over here also. These are very high correlation, high factor loadings, you can say. Subjective norm 1, 2, and 3, these three observed variables having factor loading of 0.89, 0.93, 0.96. So these are very significant factor loading. And since we have good factor loadings, good factor loading scores for almost all the observed variables, so and the number of variables that we have is minimum 3, and all the 3 variables for subjective norm 1 and purchase intention 1 and purchase behavior they are just satisfying the requirement of just identified model. But in these two cases, like attitude and perceived behavioral control, for these two constructs we do not have any problem, because we have 4 sets of observed variables for attitude as well as for this PBC. So that's an over-identified model. Overall, this model could be accepted, but this is a very prima facie look into the model, because now we need to identify all the validations and the reliability scores associated with this particular measurement model before we come to a conclusion whether this model is a good one or is an acceptable one or not. So we need to identify all the scores associated with this particular model. From this particular standardized and unstandardized distribution, we can have certain understanding about the factor loadings and the error variances and the covariance scores, etc. But we need to have a deeper look into the data or the analytical output. So you again come to this navigational panel, and you come to this one. You see there is a save button over here, and just beside this save button, if you bring your cursor over here, you will find it is prompting view text. So if you are clicking on this view text, you will come across all the results. Okay, so you have all the results over here. So let us go to the estimates. Okay, you have the scalar estimates like regression weight over here. You have the correlations over here. So we can go for calculating, as I have told you that when we discussed about that in the slide, we have said when we will be checking on the validities, we will be dealing with a number of parameters. Like one of the parameters that we have said, let me just show you the slide. One of the parameters that we have denoted here which is an important feature for this estimation of the empirical results. One is the construct validity, but within that particular construct validity, there is a particular issue of average variance extracted. Now, how to define this average variance extracted, or what is exactly average variance extracted? So average variance extracted is a measure of the amount of variance that is captured by a construct in relation to the amount of variance due to the measurement error. Okay, so let me just repeat it. Average variance extracted. This is a measure of the amount of variance that is captured by a particular construct in relation to the amount of variance due to the measurement error. So the average variance extracted has often been used to assess basically the discriminant validity. As you can see over here, that discriminant validity can be measured with the help of or it is basically a measure of the average variance between any two constructs, and it should be greater than the sum of the squared correlation between the two constructs. So it is an important ingredient or input to check on the discriminant validity also. So it is basically based on the rule of thumb that the positive square root of the AVE for each of these latent variables should be higher than the highest correlation with any other latent variable. So if that is the case, discriminant validity is established at the construct level. Okay, so this particular rule, probably you have heard it, or probably you have gone through it also. It's called the Fornell-Larker criterion. Fornell-Larker, most of the validity criteria have been stated by this Fornell. If you go to the HTMT, the heterotrade, monotrade, or max HR constructs, etc., etc. So those are all the Fornell-Larker criterion that can be used for check on the validity. However, in simulation models, this criterion did not prove reliable for basically the composite based structural equation model, the PLSPL. Okay, in simulation model, this criteria did not prove very reliable for composite based structural equation models, but they indeed proved to be very reliable for factor based structural equation models, namely what we did in Amos, or what can be done in PLS-SEM. PLS-SEM, again, this particular simulation is quite important. Now, another thing over here is the construct validity, which to start with, we have seen this construct validity. It has convergent validity in the first place, so we need to understand what convergent validity is all about. So convergent validity refers to the degree to which two measures that theoretically should be related are in fact related. So basically, called convergent validity, along with the discriminant validity, is a subtype of the construct validity. So convergent validity can be established if two similar constructs correspond with one another, while the discriminant validity applies to two dissimilar constructs that are easily differentiated. Okay, so that's very simply putting what convergent validity is all about. Okay, so convergent validity can be estimated using the correlation coefficient. And a successful evaluation of convergent validity shows that a test of a concept is highly correlated with other tests designed to measure theoretically similar concept. For example, to say, I'm giving you just a hypothetical idea. For instance, say to show the convergent validity of a test of say mathematics skills, the scores on the test can be correlated with scores on other tests that are also designed to measure the basic skills in mathematics, or the basic mathematics ability. So high correlations between the test scores would be evidence of the convergent validity. Okay, so the next one is the construct reliability. That is also important thing in assessing the convergent validity. What is construct reliability? Construct reliability is a form of reliability that is used to judge the consistency of results across items on the same test. Okay, so let me just repeat it. Construct reliability is a form of reliability used to judge the consistency of results across items on the same test. and it determines whether the items measuring a construct are similar in their scores or not. In other words, if the correlations between the items are strong enough or not. Okay, so that's what construct reliability is. And since we have understood discriminant validity from its computational point of view, let us have certain idea about the discriminant validity from its conceptual point of view also. So discriminant validity tests whether the concepts of measurements, that are not supposed to be related are actually unrelated with each other. To what extent unrelated the constructs can be proved unrelated is basically a manifestation of the discriminant validity. So Campbell and Fisk in the year 1959 actually introduced the concept of discriminant validity within the discussion on evaluating the test validity. So they stressed on the importance of using both discriminant and convergent validation techniques when going for the assessment of new tests. So a successful evaluation of discriminant validity shows that a test of a concept is not highly correlated with other tests designed to measure theoretically different concepts. So when we are computing discriminant validity these days, we are using certain kind of a statistical tool with the help of which the calculations can be done. So we have a stat graphics tool, which is basically a Microsoft Excel plugin, which can be used to calculate all these things: the construct validity, convergent validity, discriminant validity, etc. So okay, another thing is, although there is no standard value for discriminant validity, a result less than 0.7, suggests that discriminant validity likely exists between the two scales. So we always focus on a result greater than 0.70. So, however, suggest maybe if we are having a result of 0.70, greater than 0.0, it suggests that the two constructs overlap greatly, and they are likely measuring the same thing, and therefore, the discriminant validity between them cannot be claimed. So, anything less than 0.70 as a discriminant validity score, it has to be taken into account that the discriminant validity discrimination exists. Okay, so we have already understood the nomological or the phase validity. Now let us go back to our results. So we have this standardized regression weight over here, and we have the correlations over here. These two will be, two very important inputs for the validation result. I will show you how to use the standardized regression weights and the correlation to check on the validation scores, like computation of the average variance extracted, computation of the maximum shared variances, computation of the discriminant validity, etc. Now, one more thing over here needs to be checked is the model fit. So let us see the model fit. You see, over here, certain things are to be focused on. I'm just focusing on the basic few things, like we have talked about the goodness of fit indices, the goodness of fit indices like the GFI and the AGFI, and the parsimony goodness of fit indices also. See over here, the goodness of fit indices, it shows 0.597, and the AGFI is showing 0.444. Unfortunately, if we see these two scores, GFI and AGFI score, along with the other scores like the baseline comparison score or the parsimonious score, etc., we are not finding a very good fit for this measurement model. See, the GFI score, which is acceptable, and which are acceptable to for a particular scholar to consider that the measurement model is very robust and the measurement model is quite soundly grounded. The minimum score should be 0.9 and above, both for GFI and AGFI. So the goodness of fit indices falls well short of the acceptable value. Similarly, in case of RMR, or this particular RMR is also known as a badness of fit indices, or this RMSES score, which is also an indicator of badness of fit indices. RMR basically over here is having a very high value, that is 0.370. RMS should not be greater than 0.050. Okay, so a very high RMS score again speaks about the fragility or instability of the model. And if you see the parsimony adjusted measures or the parsimonious or baseline comparison, the things that you need to report in your journal paper or thesis over here is the CFI, the Tucker-Lewis index, the TLI, the IFI, the NFI, the normed fit index. All these indices are pretty low to be acceptable, to consider this model as a very robust model. So unfortunately, we are dealing with a particular data set, and the kind of model that this particular data set has churned out, it's not a very good model. Although we have seen that the model has converged, the measurement model has been computed, and then we have got both the standardized and unstandardized results. But actually, this particular model is not a very good model. So for all these indices, NFI, the RFI, the IFI, the TLI, and the CFI, all these indices should have a score greater than equal to 0.9. Unfortunately, they are not having that. So we cannot consider this as a very good model. Now, let me go back to these scalars and regression weight and standardized regression weight and the correlations. I told you that I will be using these two particular weights to understand the validity score. And to have our validity score, we normally use one particular tool package, which is called the stats tool package. I think most of you are aware about this particular tool package. If you are not, you just go to the StatWiki page in the Google. If you can search StatWiki, StatWiki, you will be redirected to the page of StatWiki. In the StatWiki, you will find a lot of tools that can be downloaded, which helps you in analyzing a lot of things. So if you can download this StatFocus stat tools package, it will help you in dealing with a lot of issue. So a stat tool package, if you see, let me open it for you, explain. This particular package, you will find a lot of things can be done. Like, it has an opening page, which is called the Validity Master. Then we have the two-way interactions that can be taken up. Group differences can be measured. Fit check can be done. Effect size can be calculated. Then heterogeneity tests can be done. Outliers can be detected. Remove of the missing data rows can be done. Imputation of the missing data can also. I was talking about that either you can use Amos directly or you can use the StatWiki package also. Scale assessment can be done. But in this case, we will be restricting ourselves in using the Validity Master. So this is the Validity Master. It's a kind of a program that has been done in MS Excel. So over here, you see, they are giving instruction in this particular page to paste the correlation table in A2. So this is column A, this is row 2. So we will be pasting the correlation table over here and paste the standardized regression weights in table F2. So this is column F and this is row 2. So we will be pasting the standardized regression weights over here. So let us go back to our data area. These are the outputs, standardized regression. These are the standardized regression outputs. So we are just copying it and we are bringing this and pasting it over here. So this is the standardized regression output that we have pasted, and we need to paste the correlation score. So we are going back again. We are clicking correlation, select it, right click it, copy it, bring it to here and paste it in A2. So once you have finished pasting the correlation score and the standardized regression weights, you just click this red button. Okay, just click this red button. See, this is the calculation of your average variance extraction, the shared variance, the H reliability score, and in this particular part, you are having the discriminant validity. So if I can just highlight it out. Okay, so this particular part shows the discriminant validity. So you can see this particular figure, the construct reliability, we are having scores of 0.947, 0.934, 0.860, 0.867. So if we check with the requirement that it should be greater than 0.7, so these scores are acceptable. In case of average variance extracted, it should be greater than 0.5, probably. Yes, it should be greater than 0.5, so it is also satisfying. This is the H reliability score. It should be greater than the construct reliability score. You can report it, or you can just report the CR and the AVE, and then you can directly come over to the discriminant validity. The discriminant validity basically assures you that the score is greater than the row score, the diagonal scores greater than the row scores, corresponding row scores. Okay, so we do not have any validity concern, and it is clearly stated over here. It say that there is no validity concern. So had there been a validity concern, or had there been certain validity issue, this particular tool would have suggested that there are certain validity issues. So this is all about the measurement model that we have done over here. So let me go back to our model. This is the measurement model. Now, say for example, a scholar has tested the measurement model, and now the scholar is actually interested to convert this measurement model. Once this is up to this particular level, it's basically the interdependence technique that he or she was using as a scholar. Now, if this scholar feels that out of these 5 factors identified, or out of these 5 factors validated, the factors share some unique relationship between each other. So the scholar has identified certain independent variable and certain dependent variable, and the scholar is interested to study the structural form. So the scholar can come out with this kind of a model. Let me show you. Say this is the particular model. Okay, this is the structural model. See, we have tested the measurement model. Now this is the structural. In the structural model, the scholar hypothesizes that attitude, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control is having influence on purchase intention, and purchase intention is having influence on purchase behavior. Additionally, the attitude and perceived behavioral control are also having direct influence on purchase behavior. So you see, now from an interdependence technique, we have proceeded towards a much more conventional form of dependence technique. So we have a set of independent variables, attitude, subjective norms, and perceived behavioral control. And we have a set of dependent variables in the form of purchase intention, purchase behavior, where purchase intention also plays the role of an independent variable in determining the purchase behavior. So if this is the structural model, can it be tested with the help of Amos also? So let us see whether after checking on the structural measurement model, can we go ahead with the structural model also? So to construct a structural model, you see the alignment or the orientation of this particular space is in portrait shape. It will be difficult for us to accommodate a structural model in its portrait shape. So we need to change the shape a little bit. So let us go for a new one. And now let us change the shape. So go to the interface property and this page size, select landscape A4, apply. So the page will change for you. See, bringing in all those, structures, drawing all the structure, create the structural part, and then bringing in all the data, labeling it out. It is similar to that of what we have already done in case of the measurement model. So let us just do it quickly. So the first one is the attitude. So we have 4, and let us reshape it. Okay. So first one is the attitude, which is one of the independent variable. The second one is the subjective norm with 3 observed variables. So we are bringing it here, and we are realigning this. And the third independent variable was perceived behavioral control with 4 sets of observed variables. So again, bring it over here and align the error variances. Fine. So these are the 3 independent variables. So let us bring in the first dependent variable, that is purchase intention. Okay, so let me just give it a twist. And this is the first one. And the second dependent variable, this is the purchase behavior. Okay. So this is over here. So you just bring it over here. Okay. Now you see, you need to, you need to connect them to establish the structures. So let us just pull these arrow and join this factor structure the way we have proposed this particular model. So I'm just randomly joining the arrow. If it doesn't look nice or the arrows are not streamlined, there is a magic wand over here in this particular navigational panel. As you can see here, it's called the magic wand. So you can click this and you can click here to make certain cosmetic changes. It will reorient your arrows and all those things, and it will make things look nice. Okay, so we can do with that. Now let us draw the error covariances between the covariances between this independent variable. Now for these 2, we need to assign certain residuals for these 2, variables, independent variables. So we can assign a residual over here, the single residual, and here. Okay, so this completes probably the model, and now we need to label it out. Labeling means to write out all the forms. So again, we will take up the same process. So double click here. So we will go for 81 and complete and fill out all these things. Only thing while doing structural equation modeling is to have certain patience to carefully draft out everything. Otherwise, if certain mistakes are made at this typing level and there are certain typing errors, then it will be difficult for the model to run. So PPC2, PPC3, and the PPC4. So these are, the 3, you can say, the independent variables. So this is attitude. This is subjective norm. As I have told you, that while writing a double word construct, don't keep any space between the 2 words. So what you can do is, what I am doing over here is SUBJECT. So this is IVE. So this is subjective. This is the first word. So without pressing the space bar, you simply press enter, and then you write norms. So that is the way to do it. And perceived behavioral control, PRCIVT, again enter, behavioral control. Then come to here. This is basically purchase intention. And over here you have purchase behavior. And then we need to define the error variances, E1, E2, E3, E4. This time it will be slightly on the higher side compared to that we have used in the measurement model, because we have residuals over here in 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, sorry, E15, E16, E17. This will be E18, and this will be E19. So we have completed the labeling part. Oh, I forgot to do it over here. This is PI1, this is PI2, this is PI3, this is PB1, this is PB2, and this is PB3. So this completes the labeling part. So once again, we have to do the same thing. We have to bring in the data. So we are bringing the same data. That means the theory of planned behavior, the data that we already used for the measurement model. So this one. So we are bringing it over here. Okay. Fine. Now we are actually fixing out the outputs. See, in this case, we are interested to know about the direct, indirect, and the total effects, because there will be certain direct effects. There will be a mediation effect of the purchase intention on purchase behavior through the impact of these three independent variables. So we need to know the factor score weights, the covariances of estimates, the correlation of estimates, the standardized estimates, the squared multiple correlations. So we can use all these things. And okay, so once we have done, we can calculate the estimate. Again, it will prompt you to save your data, to save this entire model operation. So I will be saving it with CFA4. Fine. Again, you see the red arrow has been activated. So our this particular model, structural model, has successful run. So you see these are the unstandardized estimates. All the estimates you can see in this picture, and the standardized estimates also. Okay, so you can go to this one, the data table, the data output table, and you can check on these scalars once again, you know, the regression weights, the correlations, and then you can go to the model feed also. Again, you see the same problem exists over here in the structural model part also. Since we are dealing with the same data, we haven't changed the data. You will find the GFI, GFI, these scores are pretty low, and the RMR score is very high. Similarly, NFI, the TLI and the CFI scores are pretty low compared to the standard scores of 0.9 and above. The RMSES score is again very high, 0.287, 0.390. It should be considerably low. Particularly the RMR score, it should not be greater than 0.050. So this is from the perspective of the goodness of fit indices, or the perspective of the badness of fit indices. This model is not that good. Although you see, interestingly, if we check the validity part, That means if we go for the standardized regression coefficient, this is the standardized regression coefficient. So let me again select it and go for that stat wiki. Let me just again select this validity master. I need to reopen it probably. So let me open it once more, then check it. One interesting thing is, although these validation part is done, that does not necessarily mean that you have a very robust model, although there are no such validation issues. Okay, so to be sure about a good model, those GFI, AGFI, the Tucker-Lewis index, norm-fit index, all those scores are to be quite high. Unfortunately, in this particular data, we didn't have that. So we are pasting the correlation table over here, and again we are clicking on to this thing, and you see it's not an issue. Actually, you see there is no validity concern. So we are having this validity established, but unfortunately, even with a good validity score, the RMACS score is high. Then this RMR GFI scores are not up to the limit. RMR score is quite high. GFI AGFI score is very low. So even with the validation in place, we have validated the model, but unfortunately, with a very poor score on these two fronts, we cannot accept this as a very good model. Maybe there can be certain kind of a data redundancy, or some kind of data inadequacy, or the quality of the data that we are looking through. We didn't use this same data to perform an exploratory factor analysis. If you ask this particular question, why this is happening, that why the GFI and the AGFI score, the TLI score, and the NFI score, the CFI score are consistently low, and then why the RMR and the RMSES scores are consistently high, you need to use this particular data to conduct an EFA first. So the EFA will let you understand that whether there are certain anomalies, whether there are certain problems, whether there are certain issues with the data itself. It may be a case that the correlation between the observed variables are very weak, or in certain cases, the correlation does not exist at all, and you did not delete those observed variables. You retained them in the particular frame, and it continued to disturb throughout your model building process. So when you are actually dealing with a particular data set, and you are interested to go for a structural equation modeling, make sure that with the help of the same data set, you are conducting the EFA. You explore the data first. So the exploratory part of the factor analysis has to be accomplished first, and then with the same data, because in the EFA part, you will be very sure that whether the data is actually amenable for factor analysis, and hence should be further taken up for ACM and path analysis or not. So once you are very sure about the EFF part, then you can proceed with the same data for the CFA. Only then you will find that if the results of the EFA are good with that particular data, the CFA will stand or hold very strong. Anyway, I think I have explained the technical part in running the Amos, since this particular workshop is focusing on using the tool mostly. Probably you have got some idea how the tool can be used, particularly Amos. Amos, basically you can run Amos from IBM SPSS as well. If I can just show you one thing. If you do not have the EX, if you do not want to open the standalone version of Amos, you can directly proceed from the IBM SPSS also, where from I will just show you. So if you have the Amos has to be inbuilt, it should be integrated with the normal IBM SPSS. So it should come under this, extension and utilities. So over here, since I have only the standalone version of SPSS, so it's not showing, but it will come over here. Yeah, you can actually go from here also. Okay, another way is there, probably from the analyze button over here. Yeah, from here you can also go at the at the bottom. You will find IBM SPSS Amos. So from here, if you click, it will take you to SPSS. If you have SPSS as an inbuilt to this, if you have Amos as an inbuilt to this SPSS. Since I have the standalone version, I prefer to open it up as a standalone isolated application. Now, just to wrap up, in the last class, I told you that if I get a chance, I have say I will take another 10-15 minutes. If I get a chance, I told you to, I will show you that particular thing, which is called the IBM SPSS modeler, which is slightly different from that of the IBM SPSS. You have seen IBM SPSS, isn't it? See, this is what SPSS looks like, and most of you who have already used SPSS, they are acquainted with this particular interface, isn't it? This is a very known interface to all those people who have already or who are using IBM SPSS. Okay. Now let me open the IBM SPSS modeler function for you. This is also SPSS, but it has a different interface altogether, and you will find that with respect to the traditional or the conventional or the used SPSS that you are habituated of using, there is a big difference, isn't it? So you are seeing this as a different kind of an interface, isn't it? You see this IBM SPSS modular interface is totally different from that of the traditional IBM interface. So we used to have this interface, and now we are having this kind of interface. So over here, what we actually do is, you see there is a series of tabs in the horizontal upward bar, but the most interesting part is down here. Okay, so let me just zoom for you so that you can have a better look. Yeah. At the bottom part, you will find a lot of utilities are there. Like if you click sources, you have so many sources which are compatible with this particular platform, from where you can bring in all those data. So you can bring in the statistical file from IBM SPSS directly. You can bring in the Excel files. You can bring in the SAS file, the XML files, a lot of things, the data collection that you are having. So if you have the IBM Cognos business intelligence data, you can bring in all those things. So you have a number of field operations, a lot of field operations, which is used for model building, okay, and model testing. You have a number of modeling. You have time series, auto clustering, TCM, the temporal causal model. Random trees, you can have the decision list, the linear modeling. You have the regression, the PCA factor, the neural networks. We also have the survey vector machine. This is the logistic regression. You have this one, the survey vector machine, the Bayesian network. So all the advanced modeling can be taken up with the help of this. You have the output models. You have the graphical output also. You have the histogram, the web, map visualization, time plot, multiplot. One more important thing about this IBM SPSS modeler is, which is one of the most unique things. It always provides you with a chance. Unfortunately, with this particular model that I am having, it is not there. I have another laptop in which that particular model is installed, which is IBM SPSS Modeler Pro. IBM SPSS Modeler Pro has the function of text analysis also. So anyone interested with qualitative data analysis, text mining, and opinion mining, sentiment analysis, social network analysis, etc., can be taken up. With there is an additional tab over here in IBM SPSS Modeler Pro, which can be taken up over here. So let me just show you a very small exercise with the help of this IBM SPSS Modeler. I will be showing one important analysis that we are taking up nowadays a lot. Particularly, the industry is taking up this particular analysis a lot. Suppose I'm giving you one example. This example you will be taking up. Suppose a manufacturer of the car, or we can say an automobile manufacturer, wants to launch a new car in the market, and wants to launch a new commercial vehicle, say a truck, in the market. And before launching this car and truck in the market, this particular manufacturer wants to be very sure that who will be their closest competitors, because in the market there are several brands, and out of these several brands there are several models. So models, the number of brands multiplied by the number of models, the entire automobile market is very saturated and very huge. So we need to identify the exact one or two competitors who are our closest. So based on those two competitors, we will be identifying our target segment, that whom we should market this truck and car. What should be the features, what should be the price, what should be the engine capacity, the security features, etc., designs, look, etc. Okay. Now, for this to be done, most of the organizations these days in the industry, they are opting for a particular analysis which is called the K nearest neighbor analysis. Very simply putting, K nearest neighbor algorithm is also known as the KNN, okay, K nearest neighbor. This is basically a non-parametric supervised learning classifier, which uses, the proximity to make classification or prediction about the grouping of an individual data point. So I do not know whether you have heard about two things. One is called the SMOTE, one of the applications of KNN in the research field. One is called the SMOTE, the synthetic minority oversampling technique, and the near-miss algorithm-based undersampling technique. Suppose, you have heard about bootstrapping, okay, in regression, in equation modeling, structural equation modeling. We often go for bootstrapping, generating some additional samples very synthetically. So if you have sample, inadequacy, and if a particular, analysis is turned down simply on the basis of sample inadequacy, can you generate certain simple synthetic samples? So these days we are using SMOT, SMOTE, that is synthetic minority oversampling technique, by using this principle of KNN. So what the algorithm does, it identifies, all those nearest, sample units to what is actually collected. And it provides you with a larger sample base, which the machine feels adequate to pull out the analysis. Similarly, in case of, if you want to bring the balance back, and if you have a majority sample and if you have a minority sample, particularly suppose you are entering into a comparative analysis between two genders, male and female, whereby you have a male sample size, say 3 times or 2 times greater or higher than the female sample size, then the machine learning will develop the model on the basis of the majority of the sample. That means the entire model will be taken up by focusing on the male sample size, which will be a very skewed kind of a model, isn't it? So we need to trim down the male sample size to a sizable proportion and comparable to the female sample size. So there we use a technique which is called the near-miss algorithm for undersampling. And over there also the K nearest neighbor analysis is used. The nearest neighbors were analyzed and those nearest neighbors were obtained. And there is a standard or a benchmark value beyond which all the samples are deleted from the framework, so as to bring the male sample and the female sample at a balanced level, so that we can proceed with our analysis. Anyway, these are the two applications, but I would like to show you one particular very small analysis, as I have told you, on the basis of that example. Like a car manufacturer wants to introduce a car in the market. So let us bring a very small data set. So I'm just clicking on this source, and I want to bring a particular statistical file. So I'm double clicking it. So this particular function of IBM SPSS modeler is based on connecting the widgets. All these are widgets that I have shown you at the initial stage. All these are widgets. So you can drag and drop these widgets also instead of double clicking. So if I'm deleting it, you see statistical data, I'm selecting it and dragging it here. So you can drag and drop the widgets, or you can double click the widget so that it will appear in this working space. So I'm double clicking the statistical file to bring in the data. So I'm browsing where my data is kept. Go to drive D, and yeah, this is the car sales data that we need to. So click apply and click OK. Now I want to check whether this, this particular data has been imported properly or not. So for that, what I can do, I can connect this particular widget with a data table. So you click on to the first widget, right click, there is a term called connect. You click on the connect, and then you drag an arrow and connect it with the table so you can move it around. So now you click on the table and you run this particular table, and you will find all these data have been imported. Okay, so you see what this data is actually speaking about. It is speaking about the manufacturer. It is speaking about the models of the cars which are available, cars and trucks. So you have the brand of Acura, then Audi and BMW and Buick and Cadillac and Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge. So you have plenty of brands and vis-a-vis plenty of models. Okay, so if you scroll down, you will come across over here the last two rows. One is a new car and one is a new truck. So these are the two target variables. Okay, so this new car has to be introduced in the market. This new truck has to be introduced in the market, and we need to find out. Our objective of conducting a KNN is to find out who are our closest or nearest competitors. Okay, so this data has been successfully imported. Fine. Now we need to fix out something which is called a field operation, because we need to classify the data. We need to identify what is the type of data. So we are attaching a type node with it. So we are bringing this, one of the field operatives, the type. Again, click on to this source file and connect, and you can connect these two things. Okay, so double click on the type. You see, after double clicking the type, the entire measurement, the field of measurement, etc., will be in your front. See, we will be comparing the car and the trucks on the basis of price, the engine, the horsepower, the wheelbase, the width of the wheel, length, the carb, the fuel capacity, and the MPG. So these are the variables based on which the competitors will be identified. So these will be our input data. Okay, except for the input data over here, you see in the extreme right hand column, the role of the data has to be identified. So from price to MPG, this will be the input data, and for the rest of the data we do not have to assign any role. So for manufacturer, it's not an input data, so we can click it as none. For model, it is also none. For sales, it is none. We are not interested about the sales, not interested about the type. Okay, for resale also, for type also, we are not interested. So from price to MPG, these are the input data. LN sales basically is the log transform sales. It's again none. For partition is for the target variable or the focal variable. So it will be an input, but the measurement should be flagged because those two are the focal variable. the new car and the new truck. So before, applying it, you see the values are empty over here. So I need to identify or read the values. So there is a button over here called read values. So you just click it, you will find all the values will be read. And then you click on apply and OK, fine. So I have, specify the type of data or the type of input. Now I'm going to the modeling. Let me find out where is KNN. Over here, it's KNN. So I'm just bringing the KNN over here. Again, the same thing I have to do. I have to right click and connect the type with KNN. So I want only to, I am not going into any high-end calculations because this is only a basic demonstration I want to show. So I'm just clicking only identify the nearest neighbors, nothing else. So the fields, I do not want to disturb the fields. For settings, actually, I will be using these two settings and identify the focal record. In the type of data, we have identified the focal record as the partition. So I'm applying here and I am clicking run. See, once the model is successfully run, you will get this kind of a nugget. So this particular nugget, it holds all the analytical output. So if I click on this particular nugget, all these analysis will come. This is a particular graphical output which is very three-dimensional in nature. You can actually rotate it for a better view, and you can identify these two, that we have got. One is a new truck and one is a new car. How they are actually associated with at least 2 to 3 nearest neighbors. So to have a good understanding about this, let us go for the neighbor and the distance table. Now you can see this is the k nearest neighbors and distances. So the focal record for 158 and 159. So what basically is 158 and 159? Let us go to the data set so that you can easily understand. Let me just open the data set for you. 158 and 159 is basically the new truck and the new car. So over here, we are getting certain understanding about, so if we can scroll down over here, see 158, this serial number is the new car and 159 is the new truck. So let us go here. You see 158, what are the nearest neighbors? The nearest neighbors are 3 for 158, 131, 130, and 58. So what are the nearest neighbors for the new car? 130. 130 is Saturn SL model. 131 and 58. Okay. So 131 is Saturn again, the SC model, and 58. Let us see 58. 58 is Honda Civic. So you see, this particular car manufacturer, when they will be in the market with the kind of features, price, etc., that they have already in their mind, they will have to face competition from Saturn as a brand and Honda as a brand, and specifically from 3 models. Okay. Similarly, with respect to the new truck, that is 15, they will have competition from 105, 92, and 101. So let us see who is 105. 105. 105 is Nissan Quest. 101 is Mercedes-Benz, and one more is there, 105, 101, and 92. So 92, let me find out 92. 92 is Mercury Villager. So these will have, the new truck will have competition. The nearest competitor as Mercury, Nissan and Mercedes-Benz. So you see the K nearest neighbor analysis, it gives you some kind of an understanding about once you be in the market or once you be in the industry, who will be the closest competitor, see, who will be the nearest neighbor to you, with whom you want to fight. Okay, so if I want to decrease this K value, and if I want to bring it 2, if I can make it 1 also, who will be the biggest competitor of mine? You see, for the car it's 131, and for the truck it is 105. 105 is basically the Nissan. So this gives a very good opportunity for the industry to have a look into this aspect. Okay, so IBM SPSS modeler, the maximum functions that we are seeing nowadays are being used by the industry predictors. They are using this IBM SPSS modeler for this high-end model generation. And there are other uses also, like artificial neural. If you want to develop a high-end predictive model, or the survey vector machines, or even if you are going for very qualitative analysis based on, SNA, like social network analysis, etc., social media data analysis, text mining, text analytics, okay, sentiment analysis, emotional analysis, etc., it can be done also. So this has emerged as a very powerful tool these days for researchers. And we are using it also in addition to the traditional and the conventional version of SPSS. So thank you for your patient listening. I end here. And Dada, probably I have ended it up in time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.